Hi there, this is Justin Krane, Certified Financial Planner Professional and founder of Krane Financial Solutions. Welcome to Money You Got This. So how can you really live? How? By uniting your business money, your personal money with your life and your business. Word up.
Krane Financial is an SEC-registered investment advisor. However, such registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training, and no inference to the contrary should be made. A copy of our current written disclosure statement discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request. Information contained herein is for informational and illustrative purposes only, and general in nature. It should not be considered specific financial planning or investment advice, or a recommendation to buy or sell any type of securities or other investment products.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Money You Got This. This show is brought to you by Krane Financial Solutions. I'm Justin Krane. I'm a certified financial planner professional. I barely got that out of my mouth. I offer investment management services and do financial planning. I'm the author of the book, Money You Got This. I'm psyched you're listening to the show. I want to give you this free report, 3 things multimillionaires do to grow their wealth. Just go to coolmoneyshow.com to grab it. That's coolmoneyshow.com to grab it. Thanks. Forget about me writing a book. Let me introduce you to Leisa Peterson. She is the author of The Mindful Millionaire. She just sold 5,000 copies in 4 seconds. 4 seconds, people. This is insane. And she went the traditional publishing route. She wasn't number 1 on Amazon for 4 seconds at 7:30 in the morning. This is like legit. I've got Leisa Peterson on. She's all about the emotions, the mindset, the thoughts about money. I'm a CFP. Why wouldn't I want to have someone like you on? Welcome to the show. You're awesome. Welcome.
Thank you, Justin. I'm so happy to be here. I told you before we first met for real, like that I was stalking you. So I love what you're up to. And this is a fun conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. By the way, everyone who's listening and not watching, Lisa's doing a little bit of blushing right now, but it goes very, very well with the entire background of this podcast show. And she's like exuding this feeling of accomplishment. And you know what? I think it's okay as business owners that we get proud of ourselves. And I'm really, really proud of you and what you did and the results that you've got with your book. Why don't you share a little bit about that? And you can talk about what you do as well.
So, I wrote a book. A lot of people write books. Most people don't write like 1 million words to get to 90,000, but that was how bad I wanted to write this book and how crappy of a writer I was 5 years ago when I started on this journey. I actually had a professor at San Diego State. I was there for 1 year and he told me I was like the worst writer he had ever seen. So this is like a long story, but anyways, I wrote a book. It came out in July of 2020 in the middle of all that has been going on, not the thing that we plan as authors to have our book come out in the middle of a pandemic and we can't go on a book tour and all that stuff, but it came out. And I just found out today that we sold over 5,000 copies in the first 90 days, which is just absolutely amazing. Gives me chills. I didn't know. Cool. I had no idea actually. I knew the publisher was happy, but this book chronicles my journey with money. I'm a CFP as well, and worked in the money business for almost 30 years. And I saw some things that not everybody focuses on, and that's this emotional relationship with money, but not from the therapy side, more from like personal healing and building wealth side. And that's what I write about in my book.
That is awesome. I mean, we all need a little bit of that. It's either like, I'm busting this out. It's either like a glass of wine. I use my imaginary wine mic. I just talk into this thinking that I like, but what you're talking about, I love. I really want to go into it. I have about 12,000 questions for you about the inner game of money and mindset. But before I do, can I just brag a little bit about like who you are and what your story is? You're on a mission to help 1 billion people, right? 1 billion people elevate their financial consciousness by realizing their true value and thriving financially. I know it's 1 million, but I just had a little typo there, 1 billion. So that's
I'll take
awesome.
it.
Yeah. You've been in the business for over, I see here 17 years, but let me tell you, who cares? That's a long time. Forbes mentioned you as one of the top 10 women in driving growth in wealth management and investing. That's amazing. You've been featured everywhere, and that's great. So congratulations. I'm so excited to have you. let's first talk about my first question. First, talk about the first question is why are people struggling so much with money? And by the way, I struggle with it too. It's not like the world and not Justin, but why do we struggle so much with money?
I think that the big reason is that we've gotten it wrapped up in our self-identification and the way that we see our own value. And because they're so difficult to disintegrate from that, we
Mhm.
get lost along the way in our journey.
So we're taking our own self-worth and our own value, and then we have money, which represents value, and we're somehow merging it together and getting wrapped up in a whole bunch of gunk and sludge and feeling trapped and not being able to grow
Yeah,
and stuck.
completely. And it's not whether you have it or you don't. And that's what the book is talking about. Like, I wrote it for two different audiences, which is kind of a hard book to write, but I did it. One was like my parents who struggled with money and were declaring bankruptcy, losing houses, losing cars, all of that. That's what I grew up with. And then myself, who by the time I was in my mid 30s, I had become a self-made millionaire, and I had focused a great deal of my attention getting out of the situation that my parents had. But I
Yeah.
saw that there was a common thread in both situations, which is living from a place of fear, living from a place of scarcity, and never getting ahead, period, no matter how much money you have.
So I would love your permission. I wish this would be the way where I could literally hit a button and go from poverty thinking to prosperity thinking, hit a light switch and be like, dude, you're doing it again. Stop. Because like I want to be a prosperity thinker and I am a lot, but I also totally go into the black cave vortex of poverty thinking. And look, guys, I'm just gonna like I'm gonna just throw it out there. You can't just fix this in like 4 seconds. And fix is the wrong word. It's more like deal, treat, talk, work through. But this could take years. This does take years. So how do you work with people, Leisa, to get them to make progress and to turn the corner on this?
I completely agree with you that this takes time. And even the people that I write about in the book have been working with me for 4, 5, 6 years, just to kind of evidence what you said. But one thing that I think I do differently, and I think it has to do with the fact that I merge both self-realization and spiritual understanding combined with all that experience with money. And because I'm so comfortable talking about money, and I'm so comfortable about talking about vulnerability and all these things that go on inside of us, shame, regret, fear, guilt,
Yeah.
what I've noticed is that I can have conversations at a level with people that are not common. And what I mean by that is I'm really good at asking certain questions that quickly bring to the surface the core underlying root cause of the scarcity patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just 30 years of focusing on this and helping myself deal with all these scarcity patterns, just like you're talking about. It just created this sixth sense. And it's uncanny now because people are like, how could you know that? And I'm like, you can't really explain something you've been doing for 30 years, but I know
Mm-hmm.
it's incredibly accurate. And the problem is that these scarcity patterns are so close to our awareness, we can't see them ourselves. It's like, this is just
Yeah, yeah,
reality to
of course.
us.
Yeah,
And you really
yeah,
do need some help. And it can be questions, which is what I put in the book. Like, I'm not one of those authors that are like, oh, I'm going to give you just a little teeny bit of what I do. Like, I gave everything, and people can do the work themselves as part of the book. Like, they can go through it and figure things out. But it comes from the fact that I just created a system that helps that happen
yeah,
much more quickly. And that was my
yeah.
goal.
That's awesome. So if I get the book, would I get the amazing artwork that you have behind you, that rainbow, those rainbow collages that come with like your aura? Because this, yeah, I love
You
your artwork in
do.
the back with the light there. I mean, guys, this is a great, hold on a second. Is this a fake Zoom background?
No, it's real. It's
All right, there's a
real.
real picture with real colors.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just checking. Is that a
Yes.
real plant
That's a real
behind you?
plant. Yes.
The real plant. All right. It's not like a plant.
It's a real one.
All right. All right. Well, let's get back to things. So, um, I read like a lot of your blog posts because I really wanted to go into the mindset of money because I deal with it every day with my clients, but I don't go to the depth that you do in your work. So let's first start off with this one. You write about how if we don't have $1 million, we have to learn like we already have the $1 million and feel like we have it, even if we don't have the $1 million in the bank. So what's
Mhm.
that about?
So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can tackle any of this stuff. I'm just going to trust what's coming up. When we realize that we have the value we were talking about earlier, like that our value is non-negotiable, the value that how we see ourselves in the world, that is comparable to that prosperity state of
Mm-hmm.
awareness. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm talking about, in that how can you find that for yourself? How can you find the understanding that even though we have all been conditioned to think that it was based on our grades, it was based on our social status, it was based on our degree, it was based like all of these things that tell us that our value is based on these other things,
Mm-hmm.
none of it is true. And until we start to disentangle that attachment to our value being associated with our accomplishments, including how much money we have, we're gonna probably end up back at scarcity thoughts because it's unstable. It can go away in a minute. You know, back in 2008, we got a phone call from our financial advisor. At the time, I was a mortgage banker. I hadn't come over to financial advising, and this actually caused me to become an advisor. And the banker at Wells Fargo, that was like a partner to me as a private mortgage banker at Wells Fargo myself, said, your money is gone and we don't know if you're ever going to see it again. It was like at that time, $350,000. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
And we needed that money to finish a house we were building. It was in auction rate preferred securities. And it wasn't for almost 2 years before we found out that we got the money back because people sued Wells Fargo. But I don't think people understand, like, it doesn't matter how careful you are, it can still go away. And if you think that's your whole value, you've got a problem,
Yeah.
period.
Well, what about, okay, so I get that. But what about the financial security element of it? What about having $1 million in the bank makes you feel safe? Maybe it doesn't equate to your value, but you feel safer that you have money in the bank.
Completely. And I think that's why I'm always looking for the middle path. Like, I very much value the ability that I have had over the years to build wealth. And I know that it affects my life and my choices differently. Like, I'm not ignoring that fact. And
Yeah.
yes, because of where I came from, I don't like living in fear of what could happen to my financial situation. So I'm very diversified.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we ignore that, it's that we put it in perspective, that when, you know, let's take it to the moment we take our last breath, we're not going to be thinking about that money. We're going to be thinking about our loved ones, the relationships we've had with them. Like, it's putting money in the perspective that it's one part of our life, but it's not everything.
Yeah.
Does that
Did
make
I
sense?
Yeah, I know we talked offline. I don't know if I mentioned Money Quotient to you. Did I bring up that name?
Yeah.
You've got to check them out. I mean, they are great. I license their stuff. Everything is about what you just said, putting money in the context of life, um, merging your money with your life, making decisions about your life in the context of money, but really what you want for your life. That's what financial life planning is. I do that, but they're so good and it resonates so much with me based on what you're saying that I think you're onto something. And I think Money Quotient is as well. So with that said, let's talk about the usual ones, but I'm always curious about your position on this. Getting out of debt. Like when people are in debt and they come to you, what's your process in trying to get them out of it? or maybe you don't try to get them out of it. Maybe you just try to help them deal with it and work through it. But what's your process around debt with people?
It's pretty broad because people have come to me who are making $30,000-$40,000 a year and they have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And so this would be an extreme situation
Yeah.
that's difficult. It's going to take
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
And more than anything, the beginning of that process and the extreme is about how does this person feel about themselves? Because if they feel that that debt is literally wiping out all their choices in life, it's going to be really tough to pay that debt off or make a change for the
Mhm.
better.
Mhm.
So it's about getting them in a healthy position of the relationship that they have with themselves. Now, I have seen, granted, it's not for everyone, but I have seen that things like, having accumulating a lot of debt has a lot to do with somebody's sense of worthiness and their worthiness to be free of debt. And so we need to deal with a mindset first, and that can take years before we do a lot with the debt. Like, they just don't have the resources. They're looking at changing a whole bunch of stuff in their lives.
Mhm.
But going from not having enough money to pay the rent, which might be the situation that people have had before when they've come to me, to
Mhm.
all of a sudden everything's there when they need it, and they're able to pay debt, and a magical SBA loan comes in that allows them to reconfigure things so that the pressure isn't so intense with the IRS. Like, that's the kind of stuff that we do for the first couple years of working together. A lot of cases aren't that extreme, but what I have seen is, going back to scarcity mindset basically creates tunnel vision. We have a loss in our IQ of about 11, 12, 13 points. And it causes us to think that we just have like one or two options rather than a whole spectrum of possibilities. And so if I can cause someone through the process that we of working together to all of a sudden start to see that there are several different ways that they can go about changing their situation, and in some cases it has been bankruptcy. Like, I mean, I'm not the one telling them that stuff. I'm
Yeah.
allowing them to be able to make better decisions for themselves through self-understanding of what caused this in the first place. Because as we know, if we don't deal with that and then we go declare bankruptcy, and I saw this for my parents, you're back in the same
Yeah.
spot
Same
7 or 8
pattern.
years later because you
Yeah.
haven't dealt with it, the mindset
Mhm.
stuff.
Mhm. I'm going to let that sink in again. You really need to deal with the real reasons of why you're where you are, which seems to me it's about your thoughts and behaviors and patterns, which do go in with your actions. But it seems like what I'm hearing from you is there's way more to it as you peel the onion layers than you think.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And maybe listeners too, maybe they've got a really strong financial position. And so some of this isn't really applying to them. But what we
Mhm.
can also do is we can look at family members, people that are close to us who have struggled in this way. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I think is super important is that when we don't have this stuff figured out for ourselves, or we've just had a lot of really good fortune, there's a tendency to judge others who struggle with this stuff. And
Yeah, for
what we
sure.
find when we dive into this is it's like, it is not their fault. Like, it's been a series of events that have occurred that had you been in that exact same situation, you would be in that same situation too. And so dropping the judgment is really important, because when we judge other people in our lives because of their financial struggle, we hurt our relationship. We hurt
For
our
sure.
ability to help them.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Um, my next question is, they're all interrelated. You figure it out by now. Why? No, I'm not the only one that does this, but I'm going to ask it for me because like everyone else thinks they're all perfect, but I'm sorry, I'm not. Why do I worry? Why am I worrying? Why do I worry? Why do people worry? It's all in our head. We're all in our head about something that we think either is bad going to happen or whatever. And either it doesn't, or it's not as bad, or it never happens, or it was never a problem to begin with. Why do people worry so much? And why do people worry a lot about money?
So I think that answering the second question, it has a lot to do with kind of how our parents probably showed up with money.
Hmm.
Maybe just one of them, if one of them worried a lot, and we're going to adopt those patterns
Hmm.
more often than not. But one of the things that I've noticed, and even in my husband and I, we've been together since 1987. So I've lost track of how many years that is.
That's
It's a
like
really
five,
long
10 minutes.
time.
That's like 10 minutes.
Since we were in college, and he does not meditate like I do. 22 years ago, I started meditating, and it's so interesting because he does not have control over his thoughts and I do. And the only difference between the two of us is the fact that I meditate every single day and I have for 22 years. And why that's important with your question is I think that we worry because we do not have control over our minds. And as long as we don't have control of our minds, when the thoughts come in, because they still come in, the same
Hmm.
world is happening for both of us. But
Hmm.
when the thought comes in for me, it's like a well trained horse. I'm like, nope, not going
Oh
there.
my God. Lisa, can you get that on Amazon? Can we get that at like Costco? By the way, I'm saying this, like, of course I want more of this. The entire world struggles with this. So, what's the connection between meditation and controlling your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's like a muscle. So the ability to shift your attention to where you want to go is just like a muscle that you build up muscles and they look different and they feel different and you feel different as a result. The prefrontal cortex responds to your ability to continuously bring the attention back. So when we meditate, and just to be clear, there's lots of different meditation.
Yeah.
Listening to a headspace meditation that kind of guides you through some stuff, it's not the same. It doesn't have the same impact as what I'm talking about, where you are the one sitting there in silence. You watch your mind go away and then you bring it back.
Yeah.
Goes away, you bring it back. That's the exercise. That exercise of bringing it back is literally like training the mind like you would a horse. It's like the easiest way to explain it to people who don't meditate. If you meditate, you know what that's like.
Yeah, no,
But
yeah.
the problem is that it really only lasts for a few weeks. So if you're not doing it regularly, you literally lose it.
I have meditated for probably 20 years. Um, I've only done one kind. It's alpha, theta, and delta brainwaves with bowls and rain. No real talking. For the first 2 years, it was brutal. I couldn't sit still. I was irritable. And then I turned the corner and I actually noticed myself. I said, okay, Justin, when you meditate, I want you to step out of your brain and I want you to watch yourself get irritable and restless. And as soon as I did that, it was surrender. I was able to get myself to a better place. Um, but now I'm in a different period in my life where I feel like maybe I need a different way of meditating, or maybe, that's true with anything in life. Like what got you here won't get you there. So it piques my curiosity about what you're doing with meditating. Are you just closing your eyes? Are you listening to things? Are you counting how many books you're going to sell in one day? Like, what are you doing?
So one of the things that came together with the book, so I've been meditating. At first, it was Buddhist meditation. I taught Buddhism for many years, and then that kind of went away, and I started focusing on other types of meditation. In in Buddhist teaching, it is very much about what I'm talking about, where your mind wanders and you're bringing it back, and you're not using guided meditation. So that's the
Mhm,
foundation of my
mhm,
practice. But 5 or 6 years ago, when I was trying to figure out how to take all this information that I witnessed and put it into a framework, that's when I got into realizing that the chakras, which is Hindu in history, going back thousands and thousands of years, it inspired the hero's journey. It inspired Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I realized that there were some things inside of the chakras that were going to be very helpful. And what I ultimately came to was, instead of having like a money problem, I started to see that there were these 7 pretty big patterns with our relationship with money. And so I didn't actually totally figure that out until I started doing these chakra meditations. And I sent them, I did a few classes and people showed up. And about a month after I started these meditations, several people who had been on these calls said, I don't know what's in that, but everything in my life is changing. Like something is happening inside of me. And I was like, really? Tell me about this. And it caused me to know that I was on the right track. And I started doing more and more with the chakras. And that ultimately led to me realizing this framework that I teach people. So now, and ever since then, every morning I get up and I check into these belief patterns that I have about myself as part of the meditation. So it's a recorded meditation that we can give everybody access to. And thousands of people are using this meditation on a regular basis, but it's not super woo woo. It's literally checking in to figure out where is your state of being? Because the thing that I was missing in all those years of Buddhism is there wasn't a lot of self-empowerment. And when we think about the journey of like being a regular human, not being a monk or a nun, where we like let go of everything, like we need to show up. We need to be here. We need to feel empowered in our lives.
Mhm.
And that was the big turning point where I was like, gosh, some of this stuff in Buddhism, I was losing myself. There wasn't anything that even wanted to start a business. And being a business owner, I started realizing that the more we can understand how we feel, not just about money, but about our lives and about these beliefs, the more empowered we are to show up each and every day in service of the people that, we care about most, and then some. And so now I do these chakra meditations very quickly, in addition to, focusing on things like unconditional love, peace, very feeling based, not mind based. And
Mhm.
does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
conjuring up a
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah. That's amazing. You first said chakra meditations. I'm thinking, I swear to God, I heard chocolate meditations. And I'm like, I could totally meditate about chocolate.
I
Anyway,
could too. I probably
yeah.
do.
Maybe that's one of them. So, well, I just want to make the connection that it seems like you've done a lot of work on yourself. And that's so cool, because I think when people work on themselves and they make progress in their own lives, they can show up in a better way for others. And I just admire you for that. I think that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of work.
So let's talk about the spending and saving one. So you've written a lot about spending and saving and all of that. How do you deal with someone who's at an extreme where they're saving too much and they're afraid to spend, or they're spending too much and they're not saving?
Yeah. So we'll use my framework. This is sacral chakra, which is really interesting because it's about having a very balanced and harmonious relationship with pleasure and
Mhm.
feeling. And some of us will spend a lot, or we'll spend money to evoke a feeling that we're wanting to have, but we don't have it in our lives. Or on the flip side, we're so afraid of certain feelings that we deprive ourselves of them and we live
Mhm.
extremely frugal lives. And so, yes, it's a thing. Yes, it's important to pay attention. And to me, back to those Buddhist roots, it's like always the middle path. Like, where is that for you? Because if you
Mhm.
know you're on one side or the other, there's a good chance that you're missing out on the joy of life. That's why we're
Yeah.
here. Money is a
Mhm.
tool. That's it.
Mhm. Um, you brought up a really cool connection that if you're a spender and you're buying things to evoke a feeling that you don't have within you, that's not great. And because whatever you buy, whatever that experience is going to be gone. And then you're going to be back to where you are and you're still not going to have that feeling,
Hmm.
right? You're not going
Yeah.
to be, you're not going to be centered and balanced. So I would think that people need to do the work on themselves to find that feeling, to get that feeling on their own without money being attached to it, or at least less of it.
Yeah, and this would be some pretty deep work, and one story that just comes to mind, if it's okay if I share, just
Sure.
something very personal. Uh, my mom passed away. She got stage 3 ovarian cancer, stage 4 ovarian cancer, and stuck around for a long time, like 3.5 years, fighting this disease. And I had not done this work yet. I had done a lot of inner work, but I was still not mindful of like how money showed up in my life. Like I hadn't connected my spiritual understanding to money.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was in her last week of life, she was in this hospice home, and I was able to kind of hang out and sleep in this room with her and be with her. And she was like 61. I mean, really young. And
Wow.
what I did I would pay attention to her, but she was slowly going where, she wasn't able to talk anymore. And I just had to push a button to help with the pain because it was so intense. And I would get these little windows of time, and I went shopping. Like I went clothes shopping in the middle of my mom dying because it was the only thing that I could relate to. I was so cut off from my feelings and I wanted to feel better. And I was looking for that dopamine rush the at the store. And I remember I told the hospice nurse, like, call me when the doctor's coming. And I'm in a dressing room and she calls me. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And I didn't understand at the time. It wasn't going to be for many years later till I started really doing this work and understanding like like that happens to a lot of people. They're so disconnected or they're
For
so
sure.
unhappy with aspects of their lives, like I was in that situation, that we go to spend money to fill the hole. And it's not, I would have much rather have had that time with my
Sure.
mom, but these are things that we do. And I share these vulnerable stories because it's like, just like you, like, I'm not saying that I've got it all figured out, but I'm very aware of the
You gotta do
challenges
things.
and the fact that we can, like, that would never happen to me now. Like I am, that was 13, 14 years ago, like
Yeah.
not me anymore, but that back then that was me.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, it takes a lot to share that. And, you know, what goes on in my head is like everybody poops. I mean, like everyone's got their stuff. Everyone has things that they're dealing with inside that aren't good. But I think it's the willingness to strive to be better and to make progress and to work on it. Um, let's go back to your book. Like today is a big day for you. It's a really big day. What are you going to do with this day? Is it just another day, or are you going to try and build on it?
So one of the things I did was I sent notes to people who had me on their radio shows and their podcasts. And like, I just wanted to share it because I feel like a lot of times we don't hear the other side of the story. And I had a
Yeah.
lot of people that supported the launch and both my community as well as
Mm,
people. And so that was the first thing that came to me. I just couldn't wait to share my gratitude for what others helped me to do, because I think that's been the biggest thing for me, is that this has been a co-creative exercise with my clients, with publisher, with my
mm,
agent, with so many people. And that makes me really, really happy to be able to share that, because I think when we do things like this, we never know how they're going to go. And saying thank you when there's something to celebrate is even better
yeah.
than just like, thank you, just wanted to let you
Yeah.
know I'm good. So that was how I approached it. And, the other thing is that we are almost to 100 reviews on the book. And so my husband's like, we're going to have a party. So I think we have like 5 more reviews or something.
Oh my God. That's amazing. That's great. Well, I'll hopefully get to it this weekend. But as I'm going to be vulnerable with you now on this show. So as I'm hearing you talk about your book and the success that you've had with your book, I start to think about legacy and the fact that we're not going to live forever. And I just realized this when my dad died. Like, he died in 2018. So, 2.5 years. And like, I knew this. I knew I wasn't going to live forever, but I wasn't in touch with mortality until he died. And I wrote a book too. But coming full circle with your book, it's like in 200 years, when we're not here, someone can still read your book. Isn't that, I know it's like, okay, in the year 2300 or whatever, 22, whatever, I can't even do the math. Don't even ask you what my day job is, but that is something that is amazing about books and about your voice and about your story. You think you've done your 5,000 book thing, but you could be at 50,000, 50 million, whatever it is. And I just want to point out that there is an element of legacy and something that gets passed on to people with a book.
It's so true. I just heard of this book that I bought the other day, and someone just said, you have to have it. It's about marketing, and I do a lot of marketing. And it arrived last night, and I dove in, and the guy was like, he said, President Roosevelt, like our mighty president. And I was like, when was this book written? Like, I didn't know. And so I went to the end of the book, and the guy was born in like the 1880s.
Yeah.
1880s. And this book that I just bought, I was like, oh my gosh, it stood the test of time. How cool is that?
Yes. And the things that you're talking about, I think people are going to still be challenged with it. Maybe it's Bitcoin then, who knows what, but it's the same concept of, money and mindset and all that kind of stuff. So let's give everyone a few avenues to connect with you. So first off, your book is called The Mindful Millionaire, correct?
Yes, The Mindful
Just
Millionaire.
Google it on Amazon or type it in Amazon, The Mindful Millionaire. And your first name is spelled Leisa, right?
Yes.
And your last name is Peterson, right?
Yes.
Okay. So people can Google you, Leisa Peterson. Is there a, I don't know, a URL you want to give, or something that people can go to get more info, anything like that?
Yeah, that would be super fun. If they go to Wealth Clinic, all one word, .com/vision, they can get the first chapter of the book. They can get this really cool map about chakras and money. They can get all kinds of good stuff. The meditation that we talked about, they can get that too.
That's great. wealthclinic.com/vision.
Vision.
Okay, cool. Well, it's been so good to have you on. Congratulations on just a great day. And just, sit in the moment of happiness and proudness and all that good stuff. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Justin, so much for having me and for your work.
You got it. Have a question? Want to get in touch with us? Need some help and advice with your finances? Just go to coolmoneyshow.com and reach out to us. That's coolmoneyshow.com.
Krane Financial Solutions is an SEC registered investment advisor. However, such registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training, and no inference to the contrary should be made. A copy of our current written disclosure statement discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request. Information contained herein is for informational and illustrative purposes only and general in nature. It should not be considered specific financial planning or investment advice, or a recommendation to buy or sell any type of securities or other investment products. No investment decision should be made based solely on any information provided herein. We do not provide legal, accounting, or tax services. We recommend that all investors seek out the services of competent professionals in any of the aforementioned areas. Certain information provided has been obtained from third-party sources that we believe reliable. However, it's not been independently verified and is not guaranteed.